In Georgia, Kids Count tracks nearly 50 indicators of child, family, and community well-being. And we want to thank our state data partners like DeKalb and Public Health and others who are here today who so graciously provide us with the information that we need for Kids Count. In addition to the Kids Count products produced annually, this year we have a report looking at 20 years of data to assess progress and trends. Okay? Our ranking this year is 42nd. We're down 2 positions from 40th in 2008. In the 20 years of Kids Count, our highest ranking is 39th in 2003. The way this works is there's clumps of states. There's basically 4 tiers of state. There's the Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi clump. Then there's a big clump that includes us, North Carolina, Virginia, a lot of kind of mid-tier states. Then there's one more clump, and then there's the highest clump. So there's basically 4 tiers, even though there's a numerical ranking. The southern states and a few southwestern states, traditionally we rank in the bottom. The highest ranking states tend to be in the Northeast and in the Northern Plains. We are in the bottom 10 states in 5 out of the 10 indicators, okay? Our worst indicators here in red: high school dropouts, low birth weight, infant mortality, okay? We're in the mid-tier for teen births and children in poverty, and our highest rankings are in child deaths, teen deaths, and the children and families with no employment, okay? Since 2000, 3 indicators have gotten worse, 1 has stayed the same, and 6 have slightly improved. But even with those improvements, that's not enough to get us out of the bottom tier of states. Okay? Our focus today is to look at 20 years of trends for a couple of key indicators. And where possible, we want to look at the indicators by race and ethnicity, because when we really can begin to break the data out, we can really see where some pockets of real challenges are in the state of Georgia. The national and state trends in education, birth, employment, and all show substantial gaps in well-being when you look at it by race and ethnicity. So we're going to start out with demographics. Georgia is becoming more diverse and is inching towards becoming a majority-minority state. The percentage of white children shown here, well, shown here in gold, has declined from 61% in 1994 to 51% in 2007. Once we get below 50% in our population, we'll be considered a majority-minority state. Black children, the percentages remain fairly stable. It was 35% in 1994 and 33% in 2007. The percentage of Hispanic children, here in fuchsia, has grown from 3% in 1994 to nearly 11% in 2007. Next slide. The diversity of the child population is changing faster than that of adults. The percent of adults ages 18 to 64 who are white was just under 70% in 1994 and has declined to 59% in 2007. The percentage of black adults increased slightly to nearly 30% in 2007, and the Hispanic adult population, shown here, has grown from just under 3% to over 7% in 2007. The population aged 65 and older is less diverse, with mostly white, 76% white, 20% black, 2% Hispanic, and 2% other. So you can see the diversity of our population is in our younger children, it's in the less than age 18. Okay? Now let's talk about teen births for a little bit. Georgia has traditionally had a high teen birth rate and has always been higher than the U.S. The U.S. is the purple line. Georgia is the, if I can stay on the screen, it's the turquoise line above it. Teen births have been in a state of decline in the nation and in Georgia, but in the past 2 years, you can see we've had this little uptick right here. So we're real interested to see what 2008 brings us. Okay? When you look at teen birth data by race and ethnicity, Georgia trends follow national trends closely. The national data are the dotted line, the solid lines are Georgia. So here we have white, this is black, and this is Hispanic in the fuchsia. White teen births are lower than for black or Hispanic, and the rate of black teen births has closely followed the national average. You can see the lines almost merge. If you go back to 1994, right over here, the Hispanic rate both nationally and Georgia was lower than the rate of birth for black teens. However, since 1995, the rate for Hispanic teens nationally and in Georgia has been higher than for black or white teens. Now, the Georgia rate is likely not as high as it appears on the graph. When a baby is born, they're counted. They go into a hospital, we count the baby. But we don't know exactly the number of Hispanic moms who are out there. So it's an undercount on the number of mothers, and it makes this rate seem a little artificially high. Nonetheless, even if you look at the national data, you see it is higher than for other populations. So Georgia may actually somewhere be in here, but we don't have a good handle on actually how many mothers are out there, or potential teens, sorry, not mothers, but teens. Next slide. There are several ways to look at educational achievement. Today we're looking at dropout data from the National Center on Educational Statistics, which is the U.S. government agency that looks at analyzing education data. States calculate graduation rates and dropout rates in a variety of ways. So it's not a good comparison across the states. So you want to drive yourself really crazy, try and look at education data across the 50 states. It just, your mind will boggle because everyone has their own little formula. They're moving towards some consistency, but there has not been a good way to compare states in the past. But one thing is real clear when you look at the data in Georgia is that there are achievement gaps. The achievement gaps have been closing for Black and Hispanic youth, but they still lag behind the white youth. If we looked at NAEP data, National Association of Educational Progress, we looked at reading and math data for 4th and 8th graders, you'd see there's a gap. It's closing, but still the gap. And here you can see that this is all Georgia students in the blue and Hispanic students in the fuchsia. So even as we have had a slight improvement, we still have a big gap between Hispanic, Black, white, and the rate for all students. Okay? Oh, well, just stay there, that's fine. One other thing to note about graduation data, dropout data, and achievement data is that females do better than males. Go girls. Females have lower dropout rates than males, and students who are economically disadvantaged have higher dropout rates than students who are not economically disadvantaged. That also holds true for test scores. So if you look at the number of students we have who are poor in this state, which leads in this slide, you'll see the profound challenges we have in Georgia. We've had some progress in addressing child poverty back in the 90s and early 2000s, but more recent data right here show an increase in child poverty in the U.S. and in Georgia. These data are from 2007. The 2008 data will be released this fall, and this is before the current economic downturn. While the state child poverty rate is 20%, there are 36 counties in Georgia with more than 1/3 of the children living in poverty, and there are a number of counties with over 40% of the children living in poverty in those counties. The number of children living in poverty in Georgia is more than the combined population of Augusta, Columbus, and Macon. It's 494,000 people. Okay? In the last 2 decades, we've had improvements in per capita income. This is per capita income. It's almost doubled over the last 2 decades, but look at child poverty. We've not seen the similar improvements in poverty that we're seeing in the income of the rest of the population. Next. Unemployment. You cannot turn on a TV or pick up a newspaper without seeing data about unemployment these days. Unemployment rates in Georgia over the years have been lower. Here's Georgia. This is the U.S. above it. So we've always been lower. This is one of the indicators where we have done better than the national. But in 2005, the situation shifted, and Georgia unemployment rate has mirrored the U.S. rate, and now is above it. As the U.S. rate climbed in the last 2 years, so is the state rate. The June unemployment rate for the U.S. was 9.5%. It'd be off the chart, and the Georgia rate would be 10%. So we are going to historical highs in unemployment. Next slide. Just as for the data for children, unemployment data show racial and ethnic disparities. The unemployment rate for Georgia white workers has remained lower than that for Black or Hispanic. See, here's the white down here, here's Black. In 2008, the unemployment rate for Black workers was double that of white workers. Okay? Even during good economic times, this is my message, where's the rabbi if he's still here? This is my blessing or lack of blessing. My message is even during good economic times, Georgia's children have fared poorly when compared to national averages. And the challenges for minority children, teens, and adults are even more profound. And as our minority population increases, the challenges related to reducing racial, ethnic, and economic disparities will continue to grow. And as economic conditions deteriorate for so many Georgians these days, it is our challenge to be mindful of these data and to use these data in positive ways to make sound decisions, influence good public policy, and make wise investments for the future of Georgia.